So let's say you get arrested for a felony and you're wondering, how in the world did I get arrested for a felony charge? Now, you may have a really great job or you may have a really great career and you cannot afford for a felony to stay on your record. You certainly can't afford for a felony conviction. And so the question that you're asking yourself is, how do I get my felony case dismissed? Now, the first thing that you need to know is that there are three main ways for a case to be dismissed in general. Number one, it can be dismissed by a judge. Number two, it can be dismissed at the end of a trial. And then number three, a prosecutor can withdraw or dismiss your charges. Now, the first two that I mentioned, being dismissed by a judge or being dismissed at the end of a trial, in both of those instances, it requires that you actually go to trial. So that means you will either have your attorney file pretrial motions, maybe asserting that evidence was illegally obtained, and that could lead to a dismissal by a judge. Or your attorney makes arguments at a trial, and then a jury or even a judge can decide at the end of a trial that there is not enough evidence to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And then for those reasons, your case is dismissed. But both of those processes require a lot of work. It requires that you and your attorney prepare for a very major trial. And obviously the stakes are a lot higher when you go to trial. You never know what's going to happen. Now, the third one that I mentioned, where I mentioned a prosecutor can dismiss your charges or withdraw the charges. In that particular instance, that is the fastest way that your charge can be dismissed or your case can be dismissed. But it's also very hard to get a prosecutor to dismiss your case. And so if you're in an instance where you need your case dismissed as quickly as possible, you will have to figure out how to ensure that the prosecutor is convinced enough to dismiss your case. Now, I made a previous video where I talked about how to get your charges dismissed, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. But here I'm referring specifically to felony cases. So if you're in a situation where you're trying to convince a prosecutor to dismiss your charges, your situation has to be so compelling that a prosecutor either thinks that they got the wrong person, maybe they may feel as though you're not the kind of person that they thought you were, or most importantly, they believe that you are a person who deserves a chance, a second chance, or a person who deserves a break. Now, it's not enough for your attorney to say, hey, my client made a mistake and please give him a second chance. Everybody says that. And so what you have to tell the prosecutor, or what your attorney has to tell the prosecutor, has to be different than the song that everybody else is singing. So one thing that I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, is that a prosecutor has to believe that you are the opposite of the kind of person that they thought they arrested for a crime. So an example here that I can give is, if you are a person who got arrested for a drug distribution charge, a prosecutor is going to think that you make a living off of selling and distributing drugs. So what you can show in contrast to that is that you're a person who has a steady job, you're a person who has a steady career, and you're a person who makes an honest living from a job that you pay taxes for. And so in that particular situation, if you don't have a job, now would be a great time to go get a job so that you can show a prosecutor that you are gainfully employed and that you are working as an honest citizen should. Another example is if you are charged with a gun charge or a weapons charge, a prosecutor is going to think that maybe you're involved in a gang or maybe you're involved in drugs as well. And so what you'll want to show the prosecutor is that you're not that type of person. And what is the opposite of a person who's in gangs, who's dealing drugs? What is the opposite of that? What do those people do? Well, for one, they may be in school. So for instance, if you're pursuing an education, if you haven't graduated high school, you should be pursuing a high school diploma. If you have graduated high school, then are you pursuing an associate's degree? Are you pursuing a bachelor's degree? What are you doing with your life to better your circumstances, to show that this is not the kind of life that I live? I actually have goals. I have dreams. I want to pursue a career. Those are the things that a prosecutor would want to see. And the most important thing that I'll tell you is that school is so important. No matter how old you are, if you can show that you are in school or that you are pursuing a degree or that you are pursuing some type of life that is better than the street life, a lot of prosecutors like to see that and they may find that compelling. If you can provide your GPA, right, you're actually doing well in school. So it's not enough to just be enrolled because you want to get a charge dismissed, right? But you are actually gainfully enrolled in school and you're doing well in school. This is what you desire to do. Then a prosecutor is going to think, okay, well, if this person is convicted of a felony, then they cannot use this particular degree. And so a prosecutor may want to either dismiss the charges or lower the charges. So just keep in mind, getting a felony dismissed by a prosecutor is hard enough. But if you cannot get that, there are alternatives that you may want to consider, such as instead of a felony, letting the charge come down to a misdemeanor and pleading guilty to a misdemeanor instead of a felony. In some states, you may be able to actually get that misdemeanor expunged from your record. So it could be a slow, steady process to getting the charge dismissed, or it could be a lesser offense where you're not worried about massive jail time. But either way, a felony being dismissed from your record is major gains. Even if you get down to a misdemeanor, there are still jobs that will hire you and work with you with a misdemeanor as opposed to a felony. You lose out on so much in life when you have a felony on your record. So if you are actively working towards bettering your life and bettering your circumstances, and if you can prove to a prosecutor that you're not the type of person that they think that they arrested, you may have a chance in getting your felony case dismissed. So if you found this information helpful, please go ahead and like and follow for more.